नदियाँ बाहे जहाँ कोयल टहको गाए मारे घर आंगना ना भूलो ना मेरो गाम काठा पारे जहाँ दूध की नदियाँ बाहे जहाँ कोयल टहको गाए मारे घर आंगना ना भूलो ना मारे घर आंगना ना भूलो ना.
Good evening to all our distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. May I request all our guests to keep their mobile phones in silent mode or switched off. Kindly note there are 2 safety exits to your left and right in case of any emergency. May I invite the following dignitaries to take their respective places. Father E. Abraham S.J., Director of XLRI. Dr. Ashok Khosla, speaker for this evening. Dr. Ashish K. Pani, Dean Academics. And Dr. Madhukar Shukla, Chairperson for Father Arupe Center for Ecology and Sustainability. Please stand for the prayer song.
Have you not heard his silent steps? Have you not heard his silent steps? He comes, ever comes. Every moment and every age, every day and every night, he comes, ever comes. Many a song have I sung, in many a mood of mine, but all their notes have always proclaimed, he comes, ever comes. In the fragrant days of sunny April, through the forest path, he comes, ever comes. In the rainy gloom of July night, on the thundering chariot of clouds, he comes, ever comes. In sorrow after sorrow, it is his steps that press upon my heart, and it is the golden touch of his feet that makes my joy to shine. Have you not heard his silent steps? Have you not heard his silent steps? He comes, ever comes. He comes, ever comes. He comes, ever comes.
Please be seated. May I request Dr. Ashok Khosla and other dignitaries to come and light the lamp. May I request Ms. Amrit Kaur to present a sapling after lighting the lamp. May I now request Ms. Amrit Kaur to present a sapling to Dr. Ashok Khosla. I now call upon Dr. Madhukar Shukla to give the introduction of Father Arupe Center for Ecology and Sustainability and the Oration. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Shukla.
Good evening, everyone. May I also request people who are sitting at the back, if you can come slightly in the front, that will be good. Okay. The distinguished chief guest and the speaker for this oration, Dr. Ashok Khosla, Chairman, XLRI Board of Governors, Mr. T.V. Narendran, Director, XLRI, Father Abraham, Dean Academics, Professor Ashish Kumar Pani, distinguished guests, my faculty and staff colleagues, students, and members of the media. It's indeed a privilege to welcome you all for the fourth Dr. Verghese Kurien Memorial Oration on Sustainable Development, organized by XLRI under the aegis of Father Arupe Center for Ecology and Sustainability, or as we call it, FACES. Before inviting the director, Father Abraham, to deliver the welcome address, I'd like to take a few minutes to introduce the center as well as say a few words about the oration. FACES was established in January 2012 with a mission to promote practices and policies which will help create an environmentally, socially, and economically sustainable and just society. It's a multidisciplinary center to provide thought leadership, to promote policies, practices, dialogues which have impact on a holistic and sustainable development of the society and enterprises. During its short existence, FACES has engaged in three key activities, namely knowledge creation, which is undertaking and sponsoring research on and documentation of sustainable programs, enterprise models, and practices. Knowledge dissemination, which we do by organizing conferences, workshops, roundtables, talks like these, to provide a platform for sustainable models of development, sharing sustainable models of development. One of the key activities which we do is to organize a national conference on social entrepreneurship, which is attended by about 150, 170 professionals from social sector, the practitioners as well as policymakers. And knowledge application, which is providing thought leadership for embedded sustainability through consulting, training, capacity building programs. We decided to institute this annual oration to create a platform to listen to and learn from thought leaders, social entrepreneurs, development sector professionals, and policymakers who have made a significant contribution to the idea of an empowered, prosperous, and sustainable society. The oration is to commemorate the memory of Dr. Verghese Kurien, since needless to say that there is no better model than him for sustainable development, both in terms of his life and legacy. Let me quote his words of what development should mean. Quote, "True development must be such that it brings modernization process to the service of a majority, namely the rural poor. It must bring to these people not only the pittance which they need for their humble diet, but also the means whereby they can act together to obtain for themselves the benefits of modern science and organization. And in that process, the means whereby they can build for themselves in every village a society which is at peace with itself, concerned about its neighbor, and able to see a bright future for its children." Unquote. In this oration, in the past, we were privileged to have the renowned rural journalist and Maxis Award winner, Mr. P. Sainath, the internationally recognized social entrepreneur and the founder of Barefoot College, Mr. Bankar Roy, and the founder of Seva and Padma Bhushan awardee, Ms. Ila Bhatt, as the speakers. Continuing in the same tradition, it's an honor to have Dr. Ashok Khosla, the founder and chairman of Development Alternative Groups, which with us today to deliver the fourth Dr. Verghese Kurien Memorial Oration. In his career spanning almost 5 decades, Dr. Khosla has been a pioneer in the field of environment and sustainability. From co-designing the first ever course on sustainability back in 1960s in Harvard, co-authoring what is considered to be the first definitive text on sustainability with Professor Roger Willey. The name of the book was The Survival Equation, Man, Resource and His Environment in 1971, and establishing the Government of India's first National Environment Agency, which later on became the Ministry for Environment, the Office of Environmental Planning and Coordination in 1972, etc., to finally founding the world's first social enterprise dedicated to sustainable development, which is the Development Alternatives, about 35 years back. Dr. Khosla has focused on innovating and implementing socially equitable, environmentally sound, and economically scalable development solutions for the rural masses, which can remove social and economic disparities. Development Alternatives has developed and implemented green technology innovations for habitats, water, energy, waste management in the most backward regions of India. Over the year, Development Alternatives, or DA as it's called, has demonstrated that it's possible to have a sustainable enterprises which create local livelihoods, are based on technologies and production systems which are on human scale, which rejuvenate the natural ecosystems and are responsive to the consumption needs of local people. It's a privilege to welcome you, Dr. Khosla, and we eagerly look forward to your talk. I would now like to invite Father Abraham S.J., Director of XLRI, to introduce Dr. Khosla and to deliver his welcome address.
Dr. Ashok Khosla, Chief Guest of this evening function, Sir T.V. Narendran, Chairman, XLRI Board of Governors and MD, Tata Steel India and South Asia, Senior Executive of Tata Steel and the various companies of Jamshedpur, Dr. Ashish Pani, Dean Academics, Father Jerry Kutina, Dean Administration and Finance, Professor Madhukar Shukla, Chair Faces, faculty colleagues, staff and students, members of the press and media, ladies and gentlemen. I'm happy to welcome you all together with my colleague, Professor Madhukar Shukla, to the 4th Dr. Verghese Kurien Memorial Oration, and I thank you for your presence this evening. Dr. Shukla has already said a few things about Dr. Khosla in his introduction. I will add some more. It's our pleasure to welcome and introduce our distinguished orator for this evening. As has been said, Dr. Ashok Khosla founded and was the president of the 30-year-old Development Alternatives Group, now chairs its board. Headquartered in New Delhi, the DA Group was among the first civil society organization set up to address the issues of sustainable development from a holistic perspective. The DA Group also pioneered the concept of social enterprise, creating business-like approaches for eradicating poverty and conserving the natural resource base. He received his PhD in experimental physics from Harvard University in 1969 with a doctoral dissertation in the hyperfine structure of hydrogen halide isotopes. Upon completion of his PhD in experimental physics in 1972, he was asked by the Government of India to establish the Office of Environmental Planning and Coordination, the first national environmental agency in the Third World. Currently, Dr. Khosla is the president of the International Union for Conservation of Nature, the world's largest most representative alliance of conservation agencies and interest groups, co-president of the Club of Rome, a group dedicated to promoting systems-based strategic understanding of all environmental and other related problems affecting the world and the human predicament, and co-chair of the resource panel, which has been set up by UNEP to investigate the status and trends of natural resource use in the global economy. In India, he has served on the National Security Advisory Board, the National Environment Board, and the Science Advisory Council to the Cabinet, and on the boards of many official NGOs and academic bodies. At the international level, Dr. Ashok has had several official assignments, such as a special advisor to the Brundtland Commission, chair of the 92 NGO Forum of the Earth Summit in Rio, and has served on the boards of several environment and conservation organizations. Globally, he helped to design and teach the first, as has been mentioned, first university course on the environment as an assistant to Professor Roger Revelle at Harvard University. To set up original international information system on environment with Maurice Strong at UNEP, and to establish the first social enterprise for sustainable development, which is Development Alternatives. Thank you, Dr. Khosla, for graciously accepting our invitation. We are truly privileged to have you address the fourth Dr. Verghese Kurien Memorial Oration at XLRI this evening. We look forward to your oration. Thank you. People say that if you drink milk, you become stronger. Peter drank 5 glasses of milk and tried to move the wall. It wouldn't budge. He was angry. He drank 5 glasses of vodka. The wall moved by itself. I would like to share with you briefly Dr. Kurien's momentous career and his extraordinary leadership skills. XLRI's relationship to Dr. Kurien goes back over 25 years. I must say, I've had personally enriching association with Dr. Kurien and was greatly inspired with his visionary foresight and single-minded determination in executing his vision for the dairy sector, and importantly, in helping raise the living standards of millions of rural milk producers across thousands of villages in India. I first met Dr. Kurien here in XLRI when he came to receive the Sir Jahangir Gandhi Medal for Industrial and Social Peace in 1992. He generously helped us financially to build our MDP residence, a generosity XLRI will always remember. I was on the governing board of IRMA and served there for almost 14 years. Dr. Kurien, on behalf of NDDB, sponsored multiple batches of NDDB executives for management development programs at XLRI. Let me share you a brief history of his life. As you know, he is best known as father of white revolution and recognized globally as an extraordinary social entrepreneur who envisaged the billion-liter idea or Operation Flood, the world's biggest agricultural development program. Today, India continues to be the largest producer of milk in the world since 1997, thanks to the Operation Flood. India ranks first in milk production, accounting for 18.5% of world production, achieving an annual output of 155 million tons during 15-16, as compared to 146.3 million tons the previous year. Milk production or dairying has become an important secondary source of income for 70 million rural households engaged in agriculture and for 70% of the workforce that comprises are women. Through the spirit of cooperative movement, India has been transformed into a nation which till 1970s was struggling with severe milk scarcity and heavy dependence on import of dairy commodities into the largest milk producing country in the world. In the process, we have secured self-sufficiency for India in the dairy sector, propelling our nation towards a position of eminence on the global dairy map. The value of milk produced, over 4 lakh crores, is more than the total value of paddy and wheat produced in this country, contributing around 6% of the national GDP and 26% of the agricultural GDP. This underlines the importance of the dairy sector within the rural economy. In this context, one must acknowledge the immense contribution of Dr. Verghese Kurien for his far-sighted vision in helping kickstart a cooperative milk movement in India and also shaping a forward integration business model by helping create Amul as India's largest single food brand. Born in November 26, 1921, to a Syrian Christian family in Calicut, now called Kozhikode, Kerala, Dr. Kurien completed his degree in BSc Physics from Loyola College, Chennai, and his engineering from Gindi Engineering College. He started his career in Tata Iron and Steel Company, now Tata Steel, Jamshedpur, as a graduate apprentice training. In 1948, he went to the United States on a Government of India scholarship and earned a Master of Science in the Mechanical Engineering with distinction from Michigan State University the same year. Returning to India in 1949, by a sheer quirk of fate, he joined as an officer of the Dairy Division in Anand in Kaira district of Gujarat. It was here that he noticed the exploitation of milk-producing farmers by the large business lobby and found his true calling in life to bring about economic and social development in the country and to work for the people. So he joined forces with Tribhuvan Das Patel, a man of great integrity and commitment to start the milk cooperative movement in the region, an initiative which over time not only became the Gujarat Cooperative Milk Marketing Federation, popularly known as Amul, but also created a model which got replicated across India and transformed the lives of millions of small milk producers. Today, more than 15 million milk producers are members of the dairy cooperative societies, 144,500 of them across the country. Anand could have been just a speck on the world map, but it was one non-milk drinking revolutionary who put it on the world map. Dr. Kurien abandoned greener pastures abroad and came back to paint the country white, just like our chief guest today. His remarkable life and achievement are an embodiment of his faith in the ability of common man to exercise control over his destiny. This faith helped him to create world-class institutions that became shining examples of excellence. The GCMMF, IRMA, NDDB, and so on, which enabled ordinary people to achieve extraordinary results. He strongly believed that by placing technology and professional management in the hands of farmers, the living standards of millions of rural poor could be improved. His creation of community-owned cooperatives empowered millions of rural families, most of whom were landless and small farmers in India. Dr. Kurien wrote in his autobiography, An Unfinished Dream, I quote, "A farmer sheds his blood and sweat to produce food for us. When he eats his meal in peace, when he gets the respect and an income equivalent to other trades and industries, then alone will my dream be fulfilled. The journey that I started in Anand 60 years ago is not going to end till every farmer in our country triumphs." End of quote. In his service over 50 years, Dr. Kurien was recipient of many distinguished national and international awards. He received Padma Shri, Padma Bhushan, Krishi Ratna, Padma Vibhushan, Ramon Magsaysay Award for Community Leadership, Award for Excellence, and several other awards. After a lifetime of struggle and dedication towards serving the nation, Dr. Verghese Kurien breathed his last on 9 September 2012 after a brief illness at Anand. We decided to institute this annual oration, as has been said, to commemorate Dr. Kurien's legacy, because his life and work exemplifies the model for a responsible management leader, combining business skills with the greater good of the society and the nation building. As Dr. R.A. Mashelkar, President of Global Research Alliance, a network of publicly funded R&D institutes and former Director General of CSIR, had once described him, amongst the management leaders in India, Kurien was not only an icon, he was a miracle. The sunshine that Dr. Kurien brought in the lives of millions in the country will always be remembered with gratitude. I would like to end by stating Dr. Kurien's philosophy of life: to do as much good as I can to those who are less fortunate. But I would like to live my life as a common man. Once again, I welcome all of you to this momentous event. Thank you, and may God bless you all.
Thank you, Father. We shall now play a short video as a tribute to Dr. Kurien.
मेरो गाम काठा पारे जहाँ दूध की नदियाँ बाहे, जहाँ कोयल टोको गाए, मारे घर आंगना ना भूलो ना। मेरो गाम काठा पारे जहाँ दूध की नदियाँ बाहे, जहाँ कोयल टोको गाए, मारे घर आंगना ना भूलो ना। हमारे घर आंगना ना भूलो ना। मैं तो देखूं तारी वाट, दिन न बीते ना ही रात, कोने कहूँ दिल की बात, मैं तो थाकी रे। ना मैं गैया धोवा जाऊं, ना मैं पानी भरवा जाऊं, ना मैं सुख चैन पाऊं, मारे घर आंगना ना भूलो ना। मेरो गाम काठा पारे जहाँ दूध की नदियाँ बाहे, जहाँ कोयल टोको नदियाँ बाहे जहाँ कोयल टहको गाए मारे घर आंगना ना भूलो ना मेरो गाम काठा पारे जहाँ दूध की नदियाँ बाहे जहाँ कोयल टहको गाए मारे घर आंगना ना भूलो ना हमारे घर आंगना ना भूलो ना मैं तो देखूं तारी वाट दिन न बीते ना ही रात कोने कहूँ दिल की बात मैं तो थाकी रे ना मैं गैया धोवा जाऊं ना मैं पानी भरवा जाऊं ना मैं सुख चैन पाऊं मारे घर आंगना ना भूलो ना मेरो गाम काठा पारे जहाँ दूध की नदियाँ बाहे जहाँ कोयल टहको गाए मारे घर आंगना ना भूलो ना हमारे घर आंगना ना भूलो ना તમે આવ્યા મારે ગામ अब तो छोड़ो नहीं शाम अब तो छोड़ो नहीं शाम सुनो सुनो मुने लागे मारा मने ठेस वागे मारा कान हो मारा कान मारू काम अब तो छोड़ी जइयो ना फरी आवो मारे गाम ओ परदेसिया ओ परदेसिया मेरो गाम काठा पारे जहाँ दूध की नदियाँ बाहे जहाँ कोयल टहको गाए मारे घर आंगना ना भूलो ना मेरो गाम काठा पारे जहाँ दूध की नदियाँ बाहे जहाँ कोयल टहको गाए मारे घर आंगना ना भूलो ना हमारे घर आंगना ना भूलो ना मैं तो देखूं तारी वाट दिन न बीते ना ही रात कोने कहूँ दिल की बात मैं तो थाकी रे ना मैं गैया धोवा जाऊं ना मैं पानी भरवा जाऊं ना मैं सुख चैन पाऊं मारे घर आंगना ना भूलो ना मेरो गाम काठा पारे जहाँ दूध की नदियाँ बाहे जहाँ कोयल टहको गाए मारे घर आंगना ना भूलो ना हमारे घर आंगना ना भूलो ना
May I now request Dr. Ashok Khosla to deliver the oration. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Ashok Khosla.
Shri Narendran, Chairman of XLRI, Father Abraham, Director of XLRI, faculty members, friends from Jamshedpur, and fellow students. I'm so much left in awe after this evening's beginning of this meeting, and I'm not sure that I can live up to your expectations, because the shoes that Dr. Kurien wore are very difficult to come following. Through the wonders of, am I getting the slides on the screen? Thank you. Through the wonders of Google, we all have the same pictures, so I want to begin by saying that I'm going to weave my story around the idea that our country is now in need of many revolutions. Dr. Swaminathan with his Green Revolution, Dr. Kurien with his White Revolution were the pioneers, but we have many more to go. We live together on a planet, and we're hoping that every one of our fellow citizens on this planet can aim for and get better well-being and happiness in their lives. We live in a country which is called India, which has made enormous progress, in many ways unprecedented in the history of the world. In the last 50, 60 years, we've transformed the lives of maybe 400 million people, more than all the people who live in Europe, in the North and South America combined, and in many continents. This is a remarkable achievement. It's led to a very good life. Many of us live very well, and we are able to exert our fancies and wants. And you look at the numbers, for example. In 1982, there were about 1 million phones in this country. In 2012, 30 years later, there were 1 billion phones, 10 times as many. Similarly with air journeys, multiplied by 10 during that period. And we can see that almost everybody is actually able to get a decent life. The Patkars, this is a family in Ujjain, whom we photographed in the year 2005, with all the food that they normally have in a week placed on the table. It cost around 1,600 rupees at the time. And you can see there's nobody there who's going to be malnourished. So all in all, we've been able basically to catch up with the rest of the world, and India has become a very good place to live for those 400 million people. We have more growth, more foreign direct investment, high Sensex and better stock markets. The growth rate is going up all the time, and foreign portfolio investments are also rising. And the number of millionaires, this graph that you, I hope, can see, ends in 2012 at around 150, 160 million, 160,000, 1.6 lakh millionaires, dollar millionaires. Today it's probably close to 1 million. 1 million Indians today live as well as anyone in the world. In 1990, this basic diagram, which looks like a champagne glass, more or less shows that 20% of this country was really grabbing roughly 85% of its income. It basically could be called a disease that we have the top 20% getting, but it's got worse than that. Since 1990, now we don't talk about 20% and 80%, we talk about 1% and 99%. The very few people at the very top, the 10 or 20 billionaires, earn as much as the rest of the country. Half the people of this country can't put together earn as much as the top 10 or 15 people. So instead of being a champagne glass, it has become a bar stool. We're really in a situation where virtually all the wealth and income is going to very few people. And then, of course, there's the other country, Bharat, which is located in the same place, in the same time, and there are 800 million people there, twice as many. And they live like this. This is a photograph I took some time back in Bundelkhand, where my organization works a great deal. And you can see this woman, you know, all her possessions are in that picture. In fact, you might say her whole world is in that picture. And when you're looking for developing a nation, you expect everyone to be able to contribute. One must ask, what can you expect her to contribute? And the 5 children in the picture in the future. And this girl is asking what her 2 brothers, one of whom is hardly visible because he's in her lap, what can she do for this country? What does the future hold for her? So we have 300 million, more than that perhaps now, people in India who don't have clean drinking water. We have people spending their entire mornings from 5 in the morning fighting at the well for a bucket of water. And we have literally hundreds of millions of people who don't have toilets or modern energy. And here are the Prajapatis of Bundelkhand, my organization's Karma Bhumi, where that's the full week's food that the entire family is going to get. They paid around 300 rupees for it. So we have poorer families, larger families, we've got more people. We're in a permanent trap. The poverty, no markets, destruction of resources, lower income, more poverty, more destruction of resources. This is what drove Dr. Verghese Kurien to do what he had to do. The insight that we were basically in a vicious cycle downwards unless we did something about it. And then, you know, in many parts of our country, here and in Bundelkhand, and this is a little village in Tikamgarh district, drought and floods take over our lives. This village, we've observed over the last 10 years, 6 years of the last 10 years, for about 5-6 months in the year, there was so little food and water that virtually everybody migrated to Kanpur, to Gujarat, to Gurgaon, and to Bombay. They weren't even rich enough to leave locks on their doors, if they had doors. We're talking about large numbers of people. And of course, then what do you expect? You're going to end up with eco-refugees more and more. And this little girl, you know, forget about asking her what can she contribute to the country. She has a right to live just as well as you and I. And she's not been able to exercise that right. So this whole thing about trickle down and more SOPs and more denial of hunger, you know, you talk to government officials and they say there's very little hunger in this country. There's very little malnutrition in this country. Well, if you look at the official statistics, the number of people who don't have jobs is 5%. How can that be? How many of you believe a government which says that India's unemployment rate is 5, 4, 6%? It's all about targeting schemes You know what the word scheme means? If you look it up in the Oxford Dictionary, it means to defraud, a plan to defraud. That's what a scheme means. And that's what our entire policy making has been about, making schemes. And if you plot the number of hungry people, that's what the graph looks like. These are government statistics. They've been climbing, plateaued only in recent years. They haven't even come down. The absolute number. Of course, if you ask an economist, he or she will give you percentages. And of course, the percentage goes down because you get more people. But each one of these people is a hungry human being with a name and a family and hopes and dreams. You can't talk about percentages. You got to understand that each one of these is an Indian citizen. Look at the numbers. 400 odd million people, either hungry or malnourished. And if you look at the two graphs together, the millionaires in the thousands and the hungry and malnourished in the millions, they're almost parallel. You know, this institute, XLRI, was started in 1949 with the one understanding that people had a right to live decent lives. It was about respect for labor, for work, for the dignity of human endeavor. How can you have a country in which it is obvious from that graph that in order for a few people to be rich, you have to have lots and lots of very poor ones? There's a causal relationship, it's obvious. In the year 2008, the number of millionaires came down because the financial system collapsed. And so did the hungry and malnourished. Everything is in parallel. The whole thing you can see. It's not statistical. This is causal. And the sharing of India's income, I talked about affluenza, the overconsumption of our nation's valuable resources by a few. We also have another disease, which is also a terminal disease, but much worse because it's rather unpleasant. And we call it povertitis. So you've got affluenza on the one hand, povertitis on the other hand, the two interconnected, they go hand in hand. One causes the other. We really are confronting a situation like the one that Dr. Kurien confronted in the late 40s and early 50s, and it hasn't changed. We're all in it together, and the planet, on top of that, beyond India's borders, is even worse crises. It's got any number of major issues. Poverty, growing all over the world. Population growth, pollution, climate change, biodiversity loss, species extinction, societal breakdowns. Half the leaders of this world are talking about nothing but terrorism. What is that if it's not a societal breakdown? Financial systems breaking down. So the list goes on and on. The world isn't in good shape. I've been spending a good part of my last 10 years looking at the world's resource issues, and let me tell you, we are in very serious trouble. We're logging away our forests, we're destroying our soils. In India, for half the year, you can walk across most rivers and streams. They're dry. You know, 400 years ago, when Christopher Columbus, Vasco da Gama, all these people were heading for India, why were they heading for India? We had the richest resources in the world. Everybody wanted to come to India and grab. And now we've destroyed them all, without any thought about where our children are going to live, where future generations are going to survive. And our actions are causing massive damage to our climate systems, to our whole weather management systems, glaciers, rivers, forest fires, droughts, it's a bad situation. And we've accepted it. Every year there is massive drought, massive floods. And we haven't been able to deal with them. With all the engineering in this country that can put rockets into space and satellites and everything else. This is a picture of an area in a little district, the smallest district in India, in fact, in Madhya Pradesh, called Datia. Now, Datia used to be such a thick teak and bamboo forest that the Maharaja of Datia in the year 1928 wrote in his diary, went out with my English friends to hunt tigers, but couldn't penetrate the forest. This is really thick forest. That's what it looks like today. We're losing our land to deserts at the rate of about 10,000 square kilometers a year. These are United Nations Environment Program numbers. And you know, the world is changing very rapidly, and we don't always realize until it's too late that there's a flood coming or there's a... This is a picture I've taken from Latin America just to give you an idea of how quickly life can change. In the year 1970, the only two countries in Latin America, in South America, that had dengue were Colombia and a part of Venezuela. By 1980, 10 years later, one decade later, we had got all over Brazil, Bolivia, the Guianas, almost the whole of the central and north part of South America were under dengue. Another 10 years later, every country, except for Chile, every country had dengue. So within 20 years, this disease, and this is just symbolic, I'm not only talking about dengue, malaria is worse, chikungunya is worse, a lot of other, yellow fever. I'm just saying that we don't have time if things are going to change that rapidly. You know, if a child has blood cancer, leukemia, the only known cure for that comes from this flower. It's called a rosy periwinkle. And the pharmaceutical companies go pirating it and have been taking it from wherever. It's now really last surviving few specimens of it are in Madagascar, in a few acres of land. Once that disappears, that only cure will have disappeared. Now, it's very serious. When you lose species, you lose a lot of things, not just something that God created, that's bad enough, but something that is of extreme value to human life. And our own species, the way the tiger is going, it's going up and down, but mostly down. Most estimates say that tigers in the wild will have gone in the next 2 decades. There's virtually no way they can survive if we go on the way we are. You know, this is a bluefin tuna. The Japanese love it so much that they've almost finished it in the oceans. This is one of God's mightiest creations. You know, that fish could swim across the whole Atlantic in 5 days. It is an amazing piece of the cosmos. 3 years ago, one of those was sold for $1.75 million. There are virtually none left in the ocean, so people are willing to pay a lot of money for it. One fish, nearly $2 million. And you can imagine, if any more is seen even at 200 kilometers, it's not going to be allowed to go. At that kind of price, no fisherman is going to let it go. So, nature is in trouble, environmental issues, climate change, species extinction, that's bad enough. And then on top of that, there are no jobs. The economies are breaking down. India is not the only place without jobs. I work occasionally in Spain, and the youth joblessness, the unemployment rate of under 25, of people between 25 and 40 is 40%. So it's bad all over the world. But we don't care too much about the rest. Let's try and get our house in order. If you got the real statistics in India, you would see that our unemployment rates are very similar. And then that means the whole economic system breaks down, as it did in 2008. So we need solutions. So I've given you all the problems, and the rest of my story is about finding a few solutions. I have a solution that I'm proposing. We've started working on it. There will be many others, and I hope that the people who study at esteemed institutions like this will go out in the world and find their own solutions and be able to bring about the changes that we need, and we need to do that at very, very fast rates. This is about the organization I set up 35 years ago in 1982. It's called Development Alternatives. And it's an unusual organization because it's actually a group of organizations. Because the things we wanted to do, we couldn't do in one organization. Either because in the nature of what needs to be done, or because the laws wouldn't permit it. If you're a company, you are mandated by the law, by the Companies Act, to maximize shareholder value, and you can't mess around with trying to do good at the same time. Whereas if you are a not-for-profit, you can't do business because you can't make any money, otherwise they take your tax exemption away. If you don't have a tax exemption, you don't get any money from donors. So I had to set up a fairly complex group of organizations that could essentially between them do what was necessary to do good in a business-like way. To be able to, what we call a social enterprise, to be able to create a mechanism for making a profit as well as, at the same time, as doing something that was socially and environmentally important. This is our headquarters in New Delhi. It's just south of IIT. And what is remarkable about that building is that it's probably the greenest building in India and maybe in the world. It uses less than 30% of its materials are virgin. It's almost entirely made out of recycled mining waste, industrial waste, fly ash, mining waste, stone dust, and demolition waste from other buildings. It's made primarily using fly ash, which technologies we pioneered, and it's an elegant building. A lot of people want it. The German embassy was willing to pay us a huge amount of money to occupy one of the floors. It's a modern, effective building, and my colleagues are finding it a place where they can be very creative, and because it's got a natural ambience. But I just show you this, that in terms of both embodied and operational energy use, water use, and material use, it is 30, 40, 50% less than a conventional building. And it's symbolic of the way we think. You can be modern, you can live in the 21st century, you can aspire to the most cutting-edge lifestyle, but you don't have to massacre and rape Mother Earth for that. We can do that in benign ways in which we can live in harmony with nature. Over those 35 years, we've done a lot of research and innovation. This is, you cannot read this, but this is a timeline of the various kinds of innovations, technical and institutional innovations, that our organization developed over those years and put into the market. Some of them survived, most of them survived and grew and have been reasonably successful. Some didn't, and we learned from them. But give you some examples. We were, 35 years ago, we were real pioneers of water harvesting structures, check dams. Now, of course, a lot of our students and grad students have gone all over the world getting Magsaysay prizes and everything else. But when we started in 1984, 85 doing check dams, after studying the historical records of the Bundela kings and what kind of structures that they had 3-4 centuries ago, which were phenomenal, we basically developed a whole new engineering construct called check dams, water harvesting structures, many different kinds. And you know, since this is a business school, I should just tell you that that check dam, which cost us 4.5 lakhs at that time, it may be 9 lakhs now, has a return on investment of 550% per year. For that 4.5 lakhs, it's very easy to show you that within 200 or 300 hectares of land around that, the catchment area of that check dam, the command area of that check dam, 3 crops where you never had any before, water flowing through the river through every day of the year, 365 days of the year, when before it was only 7 or 8 months. You have fish, you have wildlife, but perhaps the most important thing, the groundwater has been raised so high that the wells are filled. So the women don't have to walk for 3-4 hours anymore to get their water. They can get it right in their village. So the impacts, financial impacts, as well as the environmental and social impacts of a small construct like that. Now, business people will also realize that if it's that good, why don't more people do it? It's simple enough. The people who have to invest are different from the people who get the benefit. So you have to spend 8, 10, 12 months of preparation time, what we call social mobilization, to convince the community that it is in their collective interest to set up the mechanisms, the committees, the water sharing, this and that, in order for them to invest this money, borrow part of it from the bank, maybe get some from a government scheme, and then make this. And if they do, their entire economy is changed. It takes a quantum leap, literally overnight. In 15 months, the whole place is completely changed. And we do this over and over again. My own organization's built more than 500 of these, and then, you know, they're now being made in Gujarat, in Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, everywhere. But it's a big contribution in terms of people's lives. Water filters, briquettes, charcoal, chulas, cook stoves, mud block making machines. That machine is a manual machine which is so strong, we call it Balram. It's a rammed earth machine. It makes bricks that don't need firing, so you save all that energy. 1 kilogram of coal is saved for each brick to be made, and it's stronger than a burnt brick. And it's a very nice building material. So once we started the manual ones, then we started getting demand for more and more bigger ones, so we make bigger ones. And that's how we sell them to local entrepreneurs in villages and communities. And we make our money by actually making and selling machines and helping them make their products. Similarly, these other building construction materials, the one picture at the bottom left is a gasifier, which we developed with the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore, which converts biomass. In the area we work in, there was a biomass. There's a weed called Ipomia. The Latin name was Ipomia. You know what the Hindi name was? Besharam. In fact, the Urdu name across the border in Pakistan is politician, because the more you cut it, the more it grows. And basically, we convert it into gas. The gas goes into a diesel engine. The diesel engine produces electricity, and we can sell it cheaper than the grid. And the farmers, the people who bring in the weeds, make a lot of money. And the waterways get cleared up because they were being clogged up by the weed. So you get so many benefits from it. Solar energy, various forms of livelihood creation, jobs. knowledge, empowerment. That lady in the picture at the bottom, that lady is the chief village planner. We give her the satellite imagery for her village. She puts it on the wall, and then the villagers have to get permission from her when they want to do changes in their thing. So this is the whole story. Now this is a factory we set up in Orcha. Orcha is near Jhansi in Madhya Pradesh. And this factory was set up in 1988. And we employed only women. 25 women were employed. And they were taken not for their skills. We interviewed 150, and we took the bottom 25, the ones that were the most neediest, the ones that really were downtrodden so much that they had no attributes. But our engineers said, the equipment is very intelligent. It doesn't need a lot of skill to be able to make a lot of money. And they were right. Over the next year or two, these women learned how to make good handmade paper. We sold it, we made money. 20 years later, I came back with two social scientists, a demographer and a social scientist. And we studied what happened to the lives of these women. Now, out of the 25, 23 were still there. One had died and one had got married and left the area. These 23 women had, over those 20 years, between the entire group, just one baby. When we looked at the control group, their sisters, cousins, same caste, same economic background and so on, there were actually, I got it wrong. They had 2 births, and the control group had 23. So it was a factor of 12 reduction in the number of births. Now, the family size is a very good correlate, a surrogate if you like, for development, for improving people's lives. People's lives improve, they have fewer children. So you can see that simply by creating decent, meaningful livelihoods, particularly for women, you can have probably one of the best contraceptives there is. And as population, is one of our major problems, this is really an additional benefit. So over those 30-odd years, up to 2014, 1983 to 2014, we were very well supported by the public, by governments, by foundations, by donor agencies, by the World Bank. Almost, now to date, almost $200 million we have received to do projects, project money, out of which we applied about 50 million for the innovations, for developing the machines and the ideas and the institutions that we wanted to change the world with. So having done that, we've now come to the conclusion that we've got hundreds of jigsaw puzzles, each one coming from a project. This project for women's empowerment, this project for improved agricultural practices, this project for water harvesting systems, this project for new agroforestry, and so on. Lots and lots of different projects, because donor agencies also have a say in what projects you do. You have your own ideas, they have theirs, and you try to mix them. But at the end of those 30 years, we had literally hundreds of different, unrelated, almost, pieces of this jigsaw. So for the last year and a half, 2 years, what my colleagues and I have been doing is bringing that jigsaw set of pieces together into a more coherent whole picture. And we set up a company called Tara Life. This is a company which is actually a holding company, which has put together all the previous companies that we had and be able to generate certain kinds of synergies, which I'd like to tell you about. So from being in a vicious downward spiral, we can actually start working on a virtuous cycle upwards. From rising well-being, you've got smaller families, you've got local jobs and livelihoods, therefore you've got more income and more purchasing power, and from there you get better well-being, and so on. Now, this is not to say that material possessions are the only way to have well-being. Of course not. But you do need a minimum. I mean, Gandhiji was aware of the fact that there are people who have too much, the affluenza problem, and there are people who have too little, the povertitis problem. And he subsumed both of them in the concept of sufficiency, which I thought was brilliant, because sufficiency is a way of defining how much the ceiling can be, and it's also how much the floor should be. The poor have to have sufficient to live decent lives. The rich should not go beyond what is sufficient for a decent life. So we're talking basically about a whole new approach to the market. And at a business school like this, I think you've got to recognize that the existing markets are not adequate. They're urban-centric, they're saturating, many of them are actually plateauing, and we've got to now find new ways. Now, there's a big underserved market out there, untapped, which we call the rural market, which has about 800 million, or maybe more, potential consumers not being addressed. We have more than 200 million potential producers, people with hands, brains, knowledge enough to be able to make things that are useful, that can be sold. We have a massive natural resource base. It's true that we've destroyed much of it, but that's an opportunity for reviving, and that creates jobs. And then, of course, there's probably no country that has more potential entrepreneurs than India. We've more or less taken over the world with our entrepreneurs. So there are huge potentials for a carefully designed business that have not yet been addressed. And the reason they haven't been addressed is their challenges. You wouldn't expect Hindustan Lever or Tatas or whoever else to spend all their time in corrugated roads, no hotels, no drinking water. Who's going to go out there and work in places where there's only poverty, very little purchasing power, too many intermediaries, large overhead costs? Why bother? You can make enough money in the city. And yet, we know that the purchasing power in these areas is growing. We know how much people spend from NCAR studies, from various actual marketing studies by private sector companies and so on. And because they are unorganized, they're not very welcoming, so nothing happens. Now, the solution to this is actually to develop a mechanism for active, affordable doorstep delivery of both goods and services and job opportunities. You've got to do both together. There was a very eminent economist called C.K. Prahlad who wrote books on the bottom of the pyramid. And he and I used to have pretty strong arguments sitting around in airports and conferences. He believed that the world is running out of urban markets, and therefore multinationals now should develop products for the bottom of the pyramid. He didn't really realize that you have to have purchasing power, which means you have to have job opportunities and income if you're going to get people to buy your stuff. So actually, you need both. You've got to have a balance between the income of the person and what they can spend it on. So our answer in Tara Life is that you get innovative, relevant, cutting-edge, 21st century, what you might call transformational products. Things like lights, mosquito repellers, cook stoves, things that make life a lot better, into the village household. And you do this by using local markets. And you can do this profitably because there are enormous potential economies nobody has figured out. Economies of scale and economies of scope. Economies of multi-revenue systems, marketing systems that make it possible. Part of it, of course, is inspired by other experiments, not least of which was Dr. Kurien. He did it. He did this with milk. And what we propose to do is to set up these mini hubs. We call them Tara hubs because our company name is Tara. Development Alternatives is the not-for-profit, and the Tara is the business affiliate. And Tara hubs basically look like that, and they essentially are a component of our whole picture. The two green organizations are the original not-for-profits, and all the blue ones are the new companies. And they're not all new. They've been around a long time, but they've been brought into a new framework. And so these solutions, which are for people as well as for the planet and for making money, are designed to overcome the crises I was talking about at both scale and speed. And if you need scale and speed, you've got to innovate. Why? Because the present systems are not working. You've got to have change. They've got to be market-based because no other system, neither the public, nor the civil societies, nor NGOs, can get to scale as well as business can. And they've got to meet the triple bottom line requirements: profit, impact on the environment, impact on society, on the community. How do you bootstrap the village economy? Well, you do that by building skills, by using local resources, by creating local jobs and local consumption. And you bring in a combination of traditional and modern needs together. If you do that, you get basically enormous synergies on the basis of which you can get a lot of efficiencies and savings, as I'm about to show you. Our new company, Tara Life, is going to start in 3 states, Bihar, UP, and MP. And within those states, these are large states, by the way. I mean, the population of these states is bigger than Europe. Within those states, we've chosen 80 districts for which we have total data. We have data on demography, on economics, on society, everything, what kinds of industries they have on our database. And then we basically look at how to proceed. Now, if you look at this diagram, there are the conventional companies that we had before, like Tara Machines. What does it do? It makes the machines I showed you to make building materials, or looms, or paper units, and sell them to entrepreneurs. It makes its money by selling factories and know-how. And we have a pretty good USP. We sell quite a lot of these. We make enough money to be able to do all our other work. Tara Academy, Tara Livelihood Academy, is a skill building operation, quite large. It deals with what we would call barefoot engineers. What the village really needs is not another well-trained B.Tech in electrical or mechanical or architecture or whatever. They need a combination. And we call them a barefoot engineer who can fix the simple things. He can be a carpenter when he's needed to be a carpenter. He can be a plumber when he needs to be a plumber. And if she's also able to do some architecture or design, all better. So we're training the kind of people that village economies need, which are not being produced really by, let alone IITs, but even by the ITIs. So this academy is quite been flourishing. It's there. But I'm going to talk for the next couple of minutes on the right-hand side. There are 3 companies there. One is called Tara Bazaar, one is called Tara Gram, and one is called Tara Hubs. First of all, let me deal with the Tara Hub. That's what a Tara Hub will look like. This is an artist's impression. Our first one will be up in about by December 31st. We're expecting to operationalize the first one, and then we start making them in large numbers. We rent local space from farmers. it's got to be well located. It has to have a certain catchment area in terms of people and markets. And it looks sort of like this, where everybody can come and get what they need. Now, what do they need? It's powered by solar energy, and the spare solar energy that we make, we can sell at very cheap cost to local industries and households. It basically has a central unit. This is part of the Tara Hub, which is primarily for women, farmers, patients, medical treatment, and so on. And how do we do that? Well, we rent space. In the bottom left-hand side, over there, is a water ATM. So you can come in and get clean drinking water for a couple of rupees a liter, maybe one. Next to that is a telemedicine center run by an NGO, which is in the business of telemedicine, connecting you to the best doctor anywhere. Any doctor can be connected on their mobile phone, and from here you can transmit virtually all the information that a doctor needs to figure out whether you're sick or not and what to do about it. Whether it's your eyes, your skin, whether it's your blood, whatever it is, they can transmit here and with a video connection, talk to the doctor and be told what medicine to take or which hospital to go to if you need to, and make the appointment. Next to that is the agri kiosk for the farmers. The farmers come in, virtually every farmer within 20 kilometers will want to come here because they get the best seeds, they get good fertilizer, they get good advice, they get information about the market, and they get connected to agriculture university professor to tell them what to do about their pest problem. So all of that is happening here. In the top, over there, top left, is the ladies' corner. That's where I don't know how many of you know this, but the number one demand we have seen in villages is for a beauty parlor. And it's very, very in high demand. And that is a beauty parlor where we're talking to various companies like Lakme and Salome to set up a beauty parlor. Next to that is a tailoring shop. And the reason we have these is that on the right-hand side is the vocational training center where we're training people beautician skills or tailoring. We have an agreement with Usha sewing machine, and we're churning out tailors by the dozens. So all of this is the service area. Over here, you can see the kinds of things that we are going to do. This is the finance area. This is where the bank is, the ATM is, the insurance agent is, and it can be all mechanized. There's a cash box. You can put your money in, and it comes on a wallet on your handheld or your mobile. This is the playground for the children during the morning, during the daytime, and a cinema in the evening. Over here is the Tara Bazaar, where you are basically able to buy all these aspirational, these transformative things. Now, why is it such a good business? Because not many people have realized that if you do systemic thinking about business, you can generate huge amounts of savings and cost savings and higher earnings. Why higher earnings? Because you got increased footfalls, multiple revenue streams, you're aggregating services. For the first time, DHL or Blue Dot can have a place to which they can deliver courier packages. There are all kinds of aggregation possibilities over here that make it possible. The truck that brings in all those chulas and briquettes and everything else to be sold there goes out with the products of Taragram, which I'm just going to come and show you. So you're saving very large amounts. It costs today 15 to 20,000 rupees to bring a truck from Delhi to Jhansi. That's a lot of money if it's going back empty. But if you do it in a systemic business way, it becomes quite cheap. So you can get all the cost savings through bulk purchasing, through optimizing your logistics and so on. We're planning to put up about 1,350 of these. 150 will be company-owned, sizable big ones, with a catchment area of about 8,000 households. And about 1,200 of these will be franchised, size smaller, with catchment areas of maybe 4,000 households. And then we have young men and women on motorcycles, properly trained and properly dressed, to go door to door with the products. It's really like Amazon, but rather than point and click, it's click and mortar. We actually do the delivery at the same time. So this is what we're doing. Here is the Tara Bazaar. These are the kinds of products that we're going to be selling there. Nutritional supplements, mosquito repellers. We actually have a solar-powered snake repeller, which we're testing out, so that we can sell things that people really can use. Water filters, water rollers, cook stoves, LED lamps, music systems, mainly kitchen stuff. These are selling now. I mean, this is an operational business. What we found while we're selling these, because we set it up to sell these, that there's quite a lot of demand for other things too. People in the villages now have enough money to want things like cosmetics and underwear and t-shirts and even blue jeans. So we actually are cross-subsidizing some of our stuff by delivering what people need. Taragram, the company that makes things in the village for export to the city or to overseas, is the other part. So here are the kinds of products that Taragram makes. We have our own looms, very, very efficient hand looms called the Tara looms, and on those, women and men, but mainly women, can make. Those are scarves made from recycled Coca-Cola bottles, PET bottles. So are those bags. These are recycled paper products made by tribal women, Saharia tribal women in Madhya Pradesh. So we make the paper gets to the village craftspeople, they make designer products, we sell them for a lot of money, we can pay much more to the workers. Spices, handicrafts, and so on. So for us, the Tara Hub becomes a kind of an engine of the village economy, to bootstrap it into a whole new field. And we've got all the data, we know exactly where we're going to do this, and basically work with the other companies. Now the other companies, Tara Machines, makes those machines, the brick making machines, the roof tile making machines, the door making machines, and so, door frame making machines and so on. And we know how to do that because we've got data on where the fly ash is. That's where all the power stations are. And those power stations provide us with the raw materials almost for free because they have to get rid of the fly ash. So a large part of our work is actually using waste materials from mines, from industries, from power stations in useful products. So essentially, finally, there is the Tara Livelihood Academy, which essentially feeds people into all our different industries. So we have a number of interesting products. One of our products is quite amazing. It's like a miracle. It's a literacy program. It teaches a woman, an adult woman, how to read, write, and do arithmetic in 60 days, in 56 days, at a cost of 6,000 rupees. And the failure rate plus the dropout rate is less than 4%. So this one we do not as a business, but as a kind of Robin Hood. We take money from CSR, from companies and so on, and then we teach women. We give them a scholarship and we teach them how to do this. It's truly transformative. It changes their lives completely. It makes them ready for looking for jobs. It makes them able to join the panchayat, they can do all kinds of things that they couldn't do before. They can even speak back to their husbands and their mothers-in-law. Things change quite a lot when you can actually become part of the modern economy. So done that. We've done almost 250,000, 220,000 women have been trained over the last few years by this method. So we basically trying to bring all these things together so that when we're in the village, we can basically provide access to big companies, to clients they can't reach. But because they're working with us, it's like a mini mall. It's a shopping mall where brands, if you like, can come and use the space, and we get rent and share revenue. So putting them all together is what I'm doing at the moment. It needs a infusion of capital of $20 million, 140 crores roughly. That 140 crores will enable us to have a turnover in the year 5 of about $100 million, which is about 600 crores. And we basically plan to expand this very rapidly after that. The impacts, other than the financial returns, which are quite high, as you can see, 95 million turnover in year 5, with an EBITDA, a return on investment of better than 25%. So this is not charity. This is not a social enterprise in the sense that we're doing good, so please give us money for cheap. We're paying good returns. A person who invests money here couldn't really find much better investment than this. The reason is that there are all these hidden, profitable opportunities in villages that nobody's been tapping. And these are the impacts. The green ones are the environmental impacts. The blue ones on top are the social impacts. How many jobs, how much carbon dioxide saved from being emitted, and so on. And they basically look like this. This is our report card. So about 500,000 tons of carbon dioxide will have been saved by that end of 5 years. Roughly 500,000, 500,000 jobs will have been created in the end of 5 years. Third-party capital raised, mobilized will be about $250 million, and so on. So these are the impacts that are beyond the business. So I want to thank you. I just think that now it's time to think different and to be able to think about machines and development the way Dr. Verghese Kurien did about milk 50 odd years ago, and we can do it. India can bring Bharat to the same level as India. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your thought-provoking and inspiring oration. Dr. Ashok Khosla will now take questions from the audience.
Good evening, Doctor. My name is Siddharth. I represent EDC. My question is, you guys have invested a lot of money in handmade paper, and how are you actually marketing that across India and outside India? Is that product being consumed just in India or outside India as well? So the marketing and sales of that handmade paper, recycled paper, how are we looking at that? Because manufacturing side is easy because we have a lot of human resource to do that. But then how are you pushing that into the market, sir?
Very good question, and of course, that's our big issue. We more or less sell everything we make. We also buy back from some of the factories that we have set up, which we sold to other entrepreneurs, a certain percentage of what they make. So we have access to quite a lot of high quality handmade recycled paper. It has to be got rid of on almost a monthly basis because inventory costs are huge in a perishable commodity like paper. So what we do is sell it through retail places, not many, mostly in metropolitan areas, plus gifts, corporate gift, bulk sales.
Packaging.
No, these are sales to diaries and calendars and stationery items and so on, to companies that want to give them as free gifts to their clients and their stakeholders. And then we haven't yet built up a major export market, which we need to, but we sell to a lot of exporters who become very rich because of our paper. But we didn't get the full benefits of that because we weren't really into setting up the export market yet. Now we're just in the process of doing that, so we hope to get the benefit of that too. So overall, out of the 100% paper production, we would probably sell about 60% to corporates in India, about 10% to exporters, and the rest through retail.
And by any chance, are we actually making acid-free paper? Because that plays a lot good role in the maintenance of these artifacts and heritage sites. The acid-free paper is consumed a lot.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Not only acid-free, chlorine-free, chemical-free, and absolutely white paper. A lot of universities use it, the watermarked one, for their diplomas and certificates. We were a major supplier to the Indira Gandhi National Center for Arts for archiving paper. And we have specialized art paper and so on, much of which is tailor-made to the client's specifications.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Hello, here.
Hi.
I'm Dr. Meena Suri Wilson, interested in women's leadership development. And my question has to do with the 2013 Companies Act and the CSR provision. And I'm wondering to what extent you're able to tie into that, or whether you're interested in how that's working for you.
We are very interested in women and in corporates using their money well, and even in trying to get some of that for our own work. To get it for our own work is actually not a good thing, though. For us, at the moment, we need investments in business rather than project money. Project money is a diversion for us because we go out and take a crore and do a crore's worth of work out in the field, and that's the end of it. Whereas if I have a crore as an investment, that opens up a business forever. So CSR doesn't allow investments. CSR is only for certain items that you can give to an NGO, voluntary organization, not-for-profit, with an ATG, this and that. So by the time you're through, it's rather cumbersome. It doesn't serve the social enterprise purpose. It's a very important thing for them to do, and it's very important for us as an NGO. The NGO part of my organization does a lot of CSR, but it's a hindrance if you want to make development a good business.
Got you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I now call upon Dr. Ashish K. Pani to give the vote of thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Ashish Pani.
honorable speaker of this evening, Dr. Ashok Khosla, chairman of the board, Mr. T.V. Narendran, director XLRI, Father E. Abraham, Dr. Madhukar Shukla, the chairperson for Father Arupe Center of Ecology and Sustainability, a member of the press, ladies and gentlemen, my dear students, staff, and faculty who are present here. So today we are extremely happy to have you here. Today you spoke on a very important topic of machine revolution to fulfill the aspiration of the rural India. You emphasized on a particular topic of disruptive innovations. Hopefully that will have a productive nation, and that will bridge the gap between Bharat and India, which you have initially spoke about the data of rural India and the urban India. Today you spoke about an important topic, and you have given a message to the students through an example of Tara Life. It's a message to all of the students, though it is less, few people will be starting their own ventures. There are so many areas of issues which you can take as an entrepreneurship venture when you start your job. So it will create an impact in the minds and heart of the people who are planning to start their online venture. I'm sure this will have an impact in the minds and hearts of the students, and we are deeply grateful to your interaction, sir. As a token of love and respect, I invite our chairman, T.V. Narendran, to present a small memento to our speaker. We express our gratitude to our chairman, Mr. T.V. Narendran, for his wholehearted support for the cause that we proudly stand and champion. My special thanks to beloved Father Director Abraham for ensuring that we are in the right path for serving the greater good. Last but not least, I want to thank all the student volunteers and the staff without whom it would have been impossible to arrange an event like this. Thank you, and wish you a wonderful evening.